on Monday. Not like that type of story, but like a certain instance, and that person goes and explains in his scenario what it means. What? Okay. All right. So let's begin. Way to go is the title of the passage. Again, so it's not like reading where they give you a blurb and give you what exactly what was going to be talked about, but again, it just serves as a nice title. But let's begin. Greek yogurt, a strain form of cultured yogurt, has grown enormously in popularity in the United States since it was first introduced in the country in the late 1980s. From 2011 to 2012 alone, sales of Greek yogurt in the U.S. increased by 50%. The resulting increase in Greek yogurt production has forced those involved in the business to address the detrimental effects of the yogurt making process may be having on the environment. So just by this, I can tell that this is what will be discussed in the passage. But yes. So let's continue on. Fortunately, farmers and others in the Greek yogurt group have found many methods of controlling and eliminating most environmental threats. Given these solutions as well as many health benefits of the food, the advantages of Greek yogurt outdo the potential drawbacks of its production. So typically you would use the word outdo when you're kind of like competing with something or someone, right? So here we're comparing advantages with the potential drawbacks, and synonym potential drawbacks is just disadvantages, right? So when you compare advantages and disadvantages together, you don't really they're not like performing in a competition sort of say. So that's when you would use outdo when it's kind of like a competition. So that's not the correct idiom you would use here. The correct idiom when you compare advantages and disadvantages, it's more likely that you're going to weigh them on like a type of scale, right? You would probably hear that advantages outweigh the disadvantages, or so on and so forth, right? So let's look. So outdo obviously won't work here because it's more of a competitive type of word. Same with the defeat, right? Do the advantages defeat the disadvantages here? No, that doesn't make any sense. And then outdo and outperform are essentially synonyms, right? They're not versing each other in like a competition or anything. It's just you're simply weighing the benefits versus the cons here. So for those reasons, D, outweigh, is your answer over here.
Yes.
The main environmental problem caused by the production of Greek yogurt is the creation of acid whey as a byproduct. Because it requires up to 4 times more milk to make than conventional yogurt does, Greek yogurt produces larger amounts of acid whey, which is difficult to dispose of. To address the problem of disposal, farmers have found a number of uses for acid whey. They can add it to livestock feeds as protein supplement, and people can make their own Greek-style yogurt at home by straining regular yogurt. If it is improperly introduced into the environment, acid whey runoff can pollute waterways, depleting the oxygen content of streams and rivers as it decomposes. Yogurt manufacturers, food scientists, and governmental officials are working together to develop additional solutions for reusing whey. So the reason why I read all of this is because we see these numbers here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So remember, as I stated before we started the practice, that you'll be asked to rearrange sentence orders and paragraphs for the paragraph to make the most sense. But we'll get to that at the end, as that is question number 5. So let us go to number 2. Actually, let's go to sentence 3 to get some context for number 2. To address the problem of disposal, farmers have found a number of uses for acid whey. They can add it to livestock feed as a protein supplement, and people can make their own Greek-style yogurt at home by straining regular yogurt. So that doesn't really make any sense here, because remember, it says to address the problem of disposal, farmers have found a number of uses for for acid whey, right? So we have to go in detail for the next sentence, describing the uses that they found. So remember, the first one here talks about they can add it to livestock feed as protein. So in order for it to make more sense, we must provide another example in which they can apply this acid whey into their daily routine. So let's look at A. So A suggests and people can make their own Greek style yogurt at home by straining regular yogurt. So that doesn't really make any sense here, right? Because remember, we're trying to find ways in which farmers can apply this acid whey into different scenarios, and that doesn't really address how farmers can use it in different scenarios. Let's look at B. They can add it to livestock feed as protein and or protein supplement and convert it into gas to use as fuel in electricity production. See, that looks good because look, it provides us with another means of its application here. They can use it in as fuel in electricity production. So that works perfectly.
Yes.
Let's look at C. They can add it to livestock feed as protein supplement, while sweet whey is more desirable as a food additive for humans. See, again, that doesn't really address the farmer standpoint and then how they can use it in different applications on the farm. D. They can add it to livestock feed as protein supplement, which provides as an important element of their diet. Again, does not address the farmer aspect and how they can apply it into different parts of the field. So your answer here is going to be B. Let's go to number 3. If it is improperly introduced in the environment, acid whey runoff can pollute waterways, depleting the oxygen content of streams and rivers as it decomposes. So here we're kind of concerned with what waterways. So this looks good as it is because waterways is plural, right? That's what we need. It can pollute waterways, so it's fine as it is. B suggests that the waterways is possessive here. That wouldn't make any sense, right? We're looking for a plural subject, and waterways is being possessive, and that doesn't really make any sense because we want to emphasize the implication that the acid whey runoff has on the environment. So B wouldn't make any sense. So could have polluted waterways. So if it took a different course of action, could have polluted waterways. No, it can because this is this is theoretical. This can happen if improperly introduced in the environment. 3D. So has polluted the waterways? Yes, it may have polluted the waterways, but remember, this is an if it is improperly introduced. So we have to be a little more theoretical about this. And for those reasons, it would be can pollute waterways. The answer here is going to be A. All right. Moving on to the 6th sentence. Yogurt manufacturers, food scientists, semicolon, and government officials are also working together to develop additional solutions for reason whey. So this is a simple question, right? Because we use commas here. So we're just listing professionals in the field that are working together to find additional solutions for reason whey. So again, you wouldn't use a semicolon here. When you're listing things, you only have commas between values or items in the list. And as you can see, yogurt manufacturers is one set of people, food scientists is another set of people, and then government officials are the last set of people. So the first two in the list, they need commas after they are listed, but the last one does not. So let's see which one does that. So obviously A does not do that because it has a semicolon. B has a colon. You wouldn't use a colon here. That's inappropriate. Then C, scientists, again, exactly what we need.
Yep.
And then that. So C looks good. And then we have D, scientist, comma, and comma. You don't need a comma after the end. That's actually inappropriate here. So it cannot be D. The answer here is going to be C. So to make the paragraph most logical, sentence 5 should be placed. So this, again, is what I said earlier. So sentence 5 is located right over here. So if it is improperly introduced into the environment, acid whey runoff can pollute waterways, depleting the oxygen content of streams and rivers as it decomposes. So this is a negative. So the 5 is talking about like negative implications if it is improperly introduced into the environment. So if we go to the beginning, we see that the main environmental problem caused by the production of Greek yogurt is the creation of acid whey as a byproduct. So that's a negative here. Because it requires up to 4 times more milk to make than conventional yogurt does. Greek yogurt produces large amounts of acid whey, which is difficult to dispose of. Again, another negative. But 3, when sentence 3 is introduced, it talks about the positives, how they can address these problems, how they can apply it into different scenarios. Right. So then we have, and then number 4 talks about different applications which they can apply to. And then 5 talks about future developments in reducing or mitigating the acid way, right? So let's see. So it only makes sense to have all the negatives grouped together at the beginning. Then we have all the positives, and we have the future efforts dedicated to this. Okay. So, and for those reasons, it can't be anything after sentence 3, because remember, sentence 3 introduces the positives. So we want to have everything grouped together. So for those reasons, A and D are out. Then we have B and C here. Then we have B and C here. The main environmental problem caused by the production of Greek yogurt is the creation of acid whey as a byproduct. Okay. Then let's see. Let's try adding sentence 5 over here. If it is improperly introduced into the environment, acid whey runoff can pollute waterways, depleting the oxygen content of streams and rivers as it decomposes. Okay, so that's fine. So 1 can flow into 2 well, so that's perfectly fine. And then let's look at number. Let's see how it flows into number 2. Because it requires up to 4 times more milk to make than conventional yogurt does, Greek yogurt produces large amounts of acid whey, which is difficult to dispose of. So see, that's not a good transition here, because we talk about how Greek yogurt makes acid whey as a byproduct. Then we talk about if it's introduced into the environment, then it could have implications. But then we go back to talking about how Greek yogurt makes a lot of acid whey. So that does not really set up the tone. So we can't really interfere sentences 1 and 2, because sentence 1 flows perfectly into sentence 2, and then sentence 2, if you were to interfere with that just wouldn't make any sense. So let's try after sentence 2. C. The main environmental problem caused by the production of Greek yogurt is the creation of acid whey as a byproduct. Because it requires up to 4 times more milk to make than conventional yogurt does, Greek yogurt produces large amounts of acid whey, which is difficult to dispose of. If it is improperly introduced into the environment, acid whey runoff can pollute waterways, depleting the oxygen content of streams and rivers as it decomposes. So that perfectly works as it is, right? Because it goes on, it talks about Greek yogurt, how it creates acid whey as a byproduct. Then it talks about how it makes a lot of acid whey, since it utilizes a lot of milk in its production process. And then it talks about how if it is improperly introduced in the environment, because remember in sentence 2 it says it's difficult to dispose of, and since it is difficult to dispose of, it's likely that it'll be improperly introduced in the environment, and that can affect the oxygen content of streams and rivers as it decomposes. For those reasons, your answer here is going to be C. Okay, so we have another writing question here. So when you see an underlined section at the beginning of a passage, or of a paragraph, excuse me, it typically talks about the again, if it should be added, deleted, or revised. In this case, it's talking about if it should stay or if it should be deleted, right? So typically I save these until later, because I want to understand what the passage is talking about, and then we go back to it. So let's do that here. Nutritionists consider Greek yogurt to be a healthy food. It is an excellent source of calcium and protein. Serves to be a digestive aid. Okay, serves to be a digestive aid. I don't think that's correct here. It would rather be serves as a digestive aid, right? For those of you who don't know why, it's just a simple idiom. It's the standard English convention. When you use serves, something serves as something, not to be something, right? Something serves as a digestive aid here. So your answer here is going to be B. It doesn't serve like digestive aid and doesn't serve for. Although those might sound plausible, the standard English convention here is just using as. So the answer here is going to be B. So let's reread this from the beginning. It is an excellent source of calcium and protein, serves to be a digestive aid, and it contains few calories.
Excuse me?
Yes?
What was the answer for 6?
Oh, we're going to come back to 6.
Oh, okay.
Back to 8. It is an excellent source of calcium and protein, serves to be a digestive aid, and it contains few calories in its unsweetened, low, and non-fat forms. So why? So this is more parallelism. So what that means is that all the verbs in the list should follow, they should all be synchronous. So they all should have the same tense. And what College Board gave us here is that serves is as it is, right, with an ES at the end or an S at the end. So that's what should follow here. So although it does follow here, it does reiterate the it, and that is not needed. We don't need to reiterate the it because that's already provided at the beginning of the list, right? You don't see it over here. It doesn't say is an excellent source of calcium protein. It serves to be a digestive aid, and it contains. So in order to do that, we want to mitigate the amount of words here. We're trying to be concise, and for those reasons, you're trying to have contains as your answer here. So again, I explained why it can't be A. B, containing. Are you containing few calories? No, and plus that does not follow the grammatical structure that was placed by College Board here. C looks good. Remember, I said contains. Will it contain? Like it will contain in the future? No, we're looking at serves. Let serve be your guide here. Let that verb be your guide in this case. And for that reason, D is not right, and C is your correct answer. We'll come back to it. We'll come back to the answer choices. The answer to number 5 was C. Karsh, we're gonna be coming back to it once we finish this section. Greek yogurt is slightly lower in sugar and carbohydrates than conventional yogurt is. So, and then you have this transition here. So typically when you see these, when you see an underlined portion at the beginning of a sentence, it typically signifies a transition question or a transition question, right? So it's asking what will be the best transition from the previous sentence to the sentence that follows. So let's look at this sentence. So Greek yogurt is slightly lower in sugar and carbohydrates than conventional yogurt is. Okay, so we know that it's lower in sugar and carbohydrates. So that, I guess, that's good for dietary needs. So okay, that's fine, right? And then it says, because it is more concentrated, Greek yogurt contains slightly more protein per serving, thereby helping people stay satiated for longer periods of time. All right, so let's see. So it talks about how sugar and carbohydrates, so it's low in sugar and carbohydrates. So that's our first sentence. The second sentence talks about, since it is more concentrated, Greek yogurt contains slightly more protein per serving. Okay, so it's just adding on to the benefits of it. There's no logical, there's nothing really related to them. So you can't really use therefore, because of this in short words or so-and-so, right? So let's look at the answers here. If for anything, you're just trying to add on to it. So you would use a continuation word like in addition or also, additionally, furthermore. Those type of words would be appropriate here. Let's look at our answer choices. 9A, also again, we want the continuation words here, right? Because we the first one is a fact, right? And the second one is a fact. The second fact is in no way related to the first, so we can't draw any relations between them. So A looks good. B, in other words. So when you use in other words, you're trying to clarify, or you're trying to basically clean up what the previous sentence says. And again, these two are not related, so you can't use the term in other words. Therefore, so are you trying to say that since it has since it is low in sugar and carbohydrates, it therefore has it therefore has a higher protein per serving count? No. If for anything, it actually says because it is more concentrated. Since Greek yogurt is more concentrated, that is why Greek yogurt has slightly higher protein per serving. It's not because that it has slightly lower sugar and carbohydrates. So C wouldn't make any sense. And then for instance, you're using for instance when you're providing an example, right? So is the fact that it has a higher protein per serving, does that signify an example for the previous sentence where it says that Greek yogurt is slightly lower in sugars and carbohydrates than conventional yogurt is? No, it doesn't serve as an example. The answer here is going to be A. Okay, so this is a diction word. All right. So also, because it is more concentrated, Greek yogurt contains slightly more protein per serving, thereby helping people stay satiated for longer periods of time. Satiated is a good word here, right? Because satiated relates to dietary fulfilledness, right? The feeling being full, right? So A looks fine. Fulfilled. So you wouldn't really use fulfilled here, mainly because fulfilled is more about like an individual's achievements or thoughts or aspirations, right? That's when you would use the word fulfill. And plus, fulfill is not talking about dietary needs. Satiated is specifically, that word specifically revolves around anything dietary related. So that's why B is not right. Complacent, same thing as fulfill, is around, is kind of like, you're, you're satisfied with the achievements that you have, um, that you have like accumulated over time. Like you're complacent, you're satisfied with what you have achievement wise, right? And again, this does not relate to food or dietary needs, so that for that reason C is out. D, sufficient. So sufficient relates to quantity of something, right? We're talking about quantity here, numbers of something. And again, we're talking about in the paragraph here, we're talking about being full. We're not talking about um, sufficient. Wouldn't make any sense. The answer here is going to be A. Um, all right. Moving on. Because consumers reap the nutritional benefits of Greek yogurt and support those who make and sell it, therefore farmers and businesses should continue finding safe and effective methods of producing the food. So that doesn't make any sense. So here we are starting with the dependent clause right over here. Right, we're starting with a dependent clause. So and how this works is that if you start with a dependent clause, you do comma. So wait, let me write dependent. Then we have comma independent, right? And the independent clause must start with a subject here, right? So that's how it works here. So we have the dependent because consumers reap the nutritional benefits of Greek yogurt and support those who make and sell it. So that has a subject and verb, right? But it doesn't communicate a full thought here. And for those reasons, the first one is a dependent clause, and then we have independent afterwards, and the independent must start with a subject. So if the independent does not start with a subject, then it is fundamentally incorrect. So let's see what we have. Therefore, so it says because consumers reap the nutritional benefits of Greek yogurt and support those who make and sell it, therefore farmers. So remember, that doesn't follow what we have. We must start with a subject, right? So so therefore is not our subject right here. So farmers is our subject. So we need to have comma farmers, right? So that's what we're trying to go for that. So for that reason, A is incorrect. B, it, comma farmers. Okay, that works. Like I said before, because consumers reap the nutritional benefits of Greek yogurt, support those who make and sell it, farmers and businesses should continue finding safe and effective methods of producing the food. That works, right? Farmers and businesses should continue finding safe and effective methods of producing the food. So that's an independent clause right there, right? And that works perfectly, right? We have the subject at the beginning of the independent clause, and that follows the form that we need. So farmers, so same thing with therefore. Farmers is not the beginning of the independent clause, so is, and that's incorrect. And then we have 11D, it colon farmers. Again, we need a comma here, not a colon. You would only use a colon when you're trying to explain, define, or list something, and that's not what you're doing here in any of the cases. For that reason, B is correct. And finally, now that we're done this, let's go to number 6. So number 6 states, so basically what we've learned so far is that this whole paragraph is all talking about the benefits of Greek yogurt. And the previous paragraph was talking about ways, the negative parts and ways that they can address the implications of the uses of Greek yogurt and the acid way runoff, right? So we go from negative to positive, just to think about it that way. Though these conservation methods can be costly and time consuming, they're well worth the effort. Okay, so that's perfectly fine, right? So it says these conservation methods are costly and time consuming, right? So although these are kind of strenuous to do, they are well worth the effort. So it's kind of like saying in the first clause right here, it's saying it's a negative, but then they are well worth the effort, which is a positive. So that perfectly goes, that follows what we have, right? So so for right now, I don't think we should delete it. So A and B are out for those reasons. Let's see C. So they both are no, but we need to find the reason as to why they are no, right? So let's see what C suggests. It says no because it continues the explanation of how acid weight can be disposed of safely. Where in this whole sentence does it talk about how acid weight can be disposed of safely? It doesn't. It doesn't at all. And for that reason, C is incorrect because it doesn't address it properly. D, no, because it sets up the argument in the paragraph for the benefits of Greek yogurt. Yeah, it does, right? Because we have the negative, and then this whole paragraph is talking about the positives. Your answer here is going to be D.